Crazy times. Things are moving quick. This was supposed to be like, I was supposed to get a honeymoon period, by the way. Not that I'm complaining, but we were supposed to be doing 150-year Wichita birthday public gathering type stuff, and they were doing this, but that's all right. So we'll give it a couple of minutes. I know one person emailed and said that they're going to be a little late. They had I think a different Zoom going on as well. I'll close my door so Megan doesn't have to listen to me.
And Mayor, this is Dee. Joy Kate Lori emailed this morning and said she could not on the call this morning.
Okay. All right. We'll make sure to forward her the minutes then.
Yeah, we'll have it all. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And I'll have to be off right at 10. I have a 10:15 client that I'll have to Zoom over to my salon for. So
yeah,
if we're not done.
Zoom over.
Yeah. So I'll have to be off by 10.
All right.
Same for me.
All right. We'll try to. Our agenda is not as open-ended as last week or 2 weeks ago. I think when we start off more open-ended, the conversations can go longer. My goal is to keep these within an hour so that we can be respectful of everyone's time. So we can jump right in. It's 9:02. I think we're good as far as the technical stuff. Like I said, we're subject to open records, which makes sense, right? Because it's an official board. So I didn't know how we could get this live streamed. So instead we have the audio from last time in case anyone wants it. But our tech guy actually is able to utilize multiple platforms. So the Zoom meeting is actually being streamed on YouTube. So everyone knows it's the equivalent of an open meeting now, live. I mean, even before we had it and you just couldn't attend it live. So there might be some people who are doing that. I only tell you that because I think that it's full disclosure, right? Like I want you guys to know that what we say now, or even then, but now it's live, so people can quote you. So just watch the jokes pretty much, because usually that's where people get in trouble. They say something that can be funny in context, and then jokes are never funny when they're written in the paper. So,
right.
So anyway, so we'll get started. Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes I think they were handed out last week or the week before. Are there any changes or any concerns, or was everything presented pretty well at the minutes last time?
Yeah.
I think so.
All right, so with that, I'm going to make a motion to accept the minutes. Is there a second?
I second that.
Seconded by Ann. He was the first one I saw because his box is right next to mine. Sorry. Seconded by Ann. If there's no discussion on the minutes or the motion, all in favor of accepting the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, cool. All right, so minutes are accepted. We're going to get into the printed agenda then. So first item is identify ways to reduce barriers between government and the Hispanic or Latino communities. Have we had any report back on that? Anyone had a chance to think about ways that we can reach out to particularly the Latino community? Or any feedback on that? Is that something we're still working on?
Well, we've got, of course, you've got the Hispanic Chamber here in town. I mean, that would be a great group to engage. Personally, I haven't reached out to them since our last discussion, just given the things that we've been involved in with the pandemic. But yeah, I think the Hispanic Chamber for sure is a group that we ought to engage.
Okay, the Hispanic Chamber, then let's put that, write that down. I got it written down in my notes, but let's make sure the note taker's writing it down. They have a young person group, don't they? I remember showing up to a meeting when I was campaigning. I think it was a young Latino young professionals group. And I showed up, no one knew who I was, and they were incredibly courteous. They invited me to the table and hung out. So are they officially part of the Hispanic Chamber, or does anybody know, are they a separate group? And what I'm asking is, like, should I reach out to both these groups?
Yeah, I would. I'm not familiar or as familiar with the second group, the young professionals group, but definitely yes. If there's a contact that anyone has, I think it'd be a good idea to reach out. And I don't mind if you would like me to help in that way. I don't mind reaching out to those groups and any others, on any specific topic items. If you need help to doing that, just let me know.
Yeah, definitely. If you could just shoot them maybe a message. I think what we want to really establish is as we move forward in reopening with the pandemic, particularly as now the reopening has kind of become we're hitting a light switch, right? Like where it's automatic. Like we had this slow plan and then boom, now it's here. It would be good to know if the Latino community is having any type of particular issues to that community that we might need to address. For example, we found out that COVID has been impacting our African American community at a much larger scale than it has, other areas in Wichita, which allowed us to, or allowed myself and Brandon Johnson to secure. We're passing out about 5,000 masks through the. I got it through the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I was able to order about 5,000 masks, have them donated, and we're having the Ministerial League help us pass them out to the churches. So when a church is reopened, a lot of the churches, and I don't mean to be stereotypical with age, but a lot of the people, in my experience, usually fall in that over 55 category who attend some of these church masses. So we want to, I think, really make sure that they're protected, right? Really promote mask wearing. And that was one thing that came up when we reached out to the African American community. Let's see moving forward, Mr. Bell, if when we reach out to the Latino community, see if anything comes off the top of their head of, is there one thing that they are most concerned about that might be unique to that community that we can, follow up on. I think that's going to be important. And really, moving forward, one of my concerns with interacting with the Latino community is trying to figure out where some of the organizational structures are. So if we can get any type of feedback on that, where, I find with, in South Wichita, the organized structures we have a really active neighborhood association, network. We have really active unions. We have really active retired union networks, right? I think in District 1, Brandon Johnson is very active in the Council of Elders, and there's very I guess defined networks already in place in the community that allow some of us to kind of a shortcut to build those relationships and get into the community. So I'm not sure what that network looks like with the Latino community. I do believe the Chamber of Commerce, as Mr. Bell said, is probably going to be our best bet as far as figuring out, the business end of it. I think Sunflower Action Committee used to have a pretty good relationship or partnership with the community. That's someone or a group that I could probably reach out to as well. But I know that. All right. So first item on the agenda, we'll report back next week on that and see. Yeah. Is there any further discussion on that item? We got a few items that I know people are sensitive for time, so some items are gonna take longer than others. All right, cool. So next item is explore technological, I can't talk today. Like, thank God it's Friday, right? Options for clients to use. So I forget the context of the technology for clients to use. Does anybody remember if there's anything specific, or was that more of a global type?
Go
ahead, Amber, and then Amber, I think Emily. I'm pointing at you guys, by the way. So I think it was Amber and then Emily as far as who just chimed in. So go ahead, Amber, and then we'll get Emily.
I think it was, is it Fee that works for
the aging population. Yeah. So it was
Say,
her.
yeah.
I was just Faye. I was just pointing down. Again, I'm just pointing as well. That
Right.
was about that.
So
when
let's go ahead and go to Faye then, and then Emily will go right back to you. Go ahead, Faye.
Sorry, and in my screen, I just have one person each time, so I can't point to anyone. What we talked about was how we had switched to virtual with our support groups and our caregivers and things like that. And so when I spoke with our program department and our program director at the association, she said if there was a way to possibly help those that are in the support groups, maybe get them some tablets, that would be great. And then she also referred us to some long-term care facilities. So like you said, the rules may have changed since we last talked, but when we last spoke, they weren't letting any visitors in. And so a lot of their families were having to FaceTime in and things like that. And really a lot of those professional caregivers in those facilities and homes were using their personal cell phones to let their family members talk with one another. So if there was a way we could help them get some tablets or laptops or something like that so they could talk to their family members face to face, that would be great.
Okay. Yeah, that's something maybe we could check in with the library. So the library can actually, I don't know how many we would need, but they actually can loan out laptops. They can loan out tablets. Library might be a good area to check into. Maybe a partnership with USD 259. I know they have a ton of like Chromebooks that they have been sending out with students. So that might be a follow-up. Let me make a note. And do we want to focus, are we focusing on the care centers for our elderly population, the nursing homes? Is that what we're looking for on this mostly, or?
That's really what our group at the Alzheimer's Association, we, work with long-term care and memory care facilities. And through this whole pandemic, we even kind of started unpeeling layers. And about 50% of people that live in long-term care suffer from Alzheimer's or dementia. And so having them cut off from family members and things like that tends to maybe progress their dementia or lead to frustration behaviors and things like that. So anything we can do to keep them connected to loved ones can help them.
Okay. All right. That's something I can put that on my list to see, library wise where we can go, see if there's ways that we can increase their access to, some of this FaceTime technology. Emily, I think I skipped you. I know you try to.
No, it wasn't me. So that's okay.
All right, I know you tried to chime in and then I talked over you, so I apologize.
It wasn't me.
All right, so we want to try to get Alzheimer's Association. We want to look towards technological options, and I can take that one on. The library is kind of in my court, right? Because it's a city thing. So
I do have one comment.
Go
if
for it.
Anybody in this group can think of ways that small businesses can utilize technology, as all these small businesses are modifying their business model through this, because I suspect that even though things have opened up, this is probably not the last of this. So if anybody has ideas that a variety of businesses can adapt their model and utilize technology, because some, like they mentioned, the elderly populations and people that, serve the aged populations, that's a little harder. That's obvious, help get them tablets and resources like that. Some, may not be quite as simple. So if there's ways that we can give each other ideas to use technology to get different messages out there to our client population or the people that we serve, that would be great to help us keep our heads above water. Because some of us, we're of an age where it's easier to adapt, and some of us, it's a little harder.
Definitely. Emily, go ahead.
On that, and this is totally off of my realm of expertise, but my daughter has started a nonprofit, and it's called the Community Foundation, and it's for chronically ill, basically 13 to 23, it's grown, aged population. She has 2 chronic illnesses. And they've been doing online support groups. She was on Channel 12 about it, I think on Easter. But do we have a place like somewhere on the city site or anything where is there a list of like different support groups, like whether it's Alzheimer's or, whatever someone's area is, that they could see what support groups are happening when, like hers are Wednesday night, things like that for our community that people could log on and find that support. I think that might be something nice for our community, since it doesn't sound like things are going to be reopening, like our colleges even, or, whatever the situation in the community, that there's a list that someone, if they are feeling like they need to reach out to people in their situations, that there's a place they could go and find those situations they could join. Is that something, maybe it's being done and I don't know it? What do you have, Amber?
Amber.
And if you call 211, a lot of times you can get all of that information and find those organizations that are doing those support groups. And then for your daughter, she needs to call 211 to get her stuff listed on the.
Okay. Definitely.
Okay. Thank
you for all of our clients over to 211. And especially right now with the way everything's been, unfortunately, some nonprofits haven't been able to make it through this, and they're going to be the ones who have the most up-to-date information as to what's still open and actually operating.
Okay. I just didn't know if there was something online, where they could visually see things, but they just need to call in and it'll give them a list.
I believe you can also go online and do it. Sorry.
Okay.
Mr. Bell, and we'll bounce back to Amber if she wants to finish that. But go ahead, Mr. Bell.
All right. So on that topic, I believe the Wichita Chamber has a community calendar, and maybe the city could bolster, that calendar, if not sync up with it. The other thing, I wanted to go back to the first point in terms of identifying ways to reduce barriers for the Hispanic and Latino communities. Mm-hmm. One thing, Mayor, you may want to visit with Council Member Claycomb about the Evergreen Community Center and the work that's happening with that group. We've been engaged with that group up until the pandemic around efforts to educate business owners in that community of various resources. So that may be an effort to kind of link up with, and so I think the conversation with her might be pretty fruitful on that subject.
Okay. All right. Yeah, definitely. And I think they have a CSR that's full-time over there. So it'd be good to see what services she's, the CSR I think is kind of on that front line, seeing what services she's being requested of. So that's a really good lead. And when it comes to, I think bolstering these calendars, the Wichita Chamber of Commerce has actually just really done a great job at posting information, kind of being that one-stop shop of not just information, and we talked about this last time, but not just information, I think with calendars and community stuff, but also with when we had the small business grants and stuff coming out, they put the state and the federal information all on one page. And of course, and this is what we talked about last time, the locally made masks, the locally brewed hand sanitizer, that type of stuff. But I think we're getting to a really good point that Emily's bringing up, is we have these resources out there, but not a lot of people know about them. And I think that a lot of the mental health, the more taxpayer-funded mental health services are something that the county has been looking into. So I think that, you might have this on the county website, and then 211 is the United Way. So you got the United Way's website, and then you have the Chamber of Commerce website. And then you have, I think, a bit of these. There was one when this whole thing first started, wanted to get a website of a listing of all the small businesses in our area that you could process gift certificates on, right? So we would have a place to try to promote people to go and actually buy gift certificates and keep our small businesses going through these rough months. And it was community made. It was a young woman named Kinsey who created a website that was already kind of doing that. And then once we chatted a bit, and I could use my social media to promote it, it got more small businesses posting on that site as well. So it's just this community-made resource called ICT Response. But so they're out there, but you kind of, I think a good point is, you know, I know of them because it's my job, right? Like, I think that normal folks who are just wondering, gee, I wonder if this information's out there, might not know about it. So we could probably do a better job promoting this stuff for sure, particularly for those who might be not on social media, you know, where it's probably a lot easier to find this stuff if you're following, you know, the @City of Wichita hashtag, or not hashtag, handle, or some of these other, you know, if you're on social media and you follow this stuff, it's probably easier to find this. So that's a good point, is can we centralize where this information is, and can we get that information out, and what does that look like? So let me put some thought into that. That might also be, you know, maybe a list at the library of what these, you know, websites are, maybe some type of printed, kind of bridging that divide between the people who are online and technically savvy to the people who still utilize more print media. Is there a way to kind of bridge that divide where, like, my mother, she's not on Twitter, but if she was mailed and I'm not knocking my mom or anything, but if she was mailed something that says, go to this website for this info, she knows how to go to a website, right? So, so yeah, I think that's a good point, is what can we do to kind of promote this a little more? Okay, any other discussion on this particular item? All right, see none. We're going to get on to businesses unable to access PPP loans. Contact Wayne at SBA for more information. So, Mr. Bell, is everyone you need any assistance on, you know, the people who've been contacting you? Is there anything that we can be doing more to kind of get that information out?
You know, I think at the moment, virtually all of the banks, all of the lending community is aware of it. We've reached out to the faith-based community and probably could use more help in that area. And then I would say probably some of our more underserved communities, such as the Hispanic and Latino community. I've talked to the Heartland Chamber, which is the Black Chamber of Commerce in town. And I'm going to try to set something up with those guys pretty quickly, you know, a webinar to talk about the program. But any other groups that you all might think of, we're actively doing workshops via webinar, and would love to do that. By the way, those funds are set, if they're not exhausted. That program deadline is June the 30th for applications. So it's something that, and there's money available. I think the last I've heard, it's still probably close to $100 billion that's available. So, you know, funds are there, and it's applicable to nonprofits, faith-based organizations, as well as small businesses. So anything that we can do collectively to spread the word. I think a good number of businesses in our area have utilized the program. I think that, when I looked yesterday, was something like over 5,000 loans that have been done in our area. And I may even be low in my numbers. I don't have it in front of me. But the point is, the volume has really been good, but I still think there's a widespread need. So if there are organizations that think that you all think of, just don't hesitate to get them our information so we can help.
So, and this kind of blends into our next one. If you were to get a loan for PP, is it PPE or PPP?
It's PPP.
Okay.
So it's the Paycheck Protection Program.
Okay. So
yep.
I wrote that as PPE at first. I was going to ask, can we use these loans to buy PPE? But obviously it's two different things, which is why we have you leading that charge and not me. Because I don't want people looking for paycheck protection loans and they wind up with a box of gloves. Go ahead, Emily.
Have they changed?
Oh, sorry, Felicia, go ahead. And then
I was going to ask, Wayne, if they've changed I read something recently, and I haven't read through the entire article yet, that haven't they changed the rules now, or are they waiting for that to be voted on still for the PPP?
There's some legislation working its way through that may lead to another version of the program coming out, or perhaps even changes. So stay tuned. But at the moment, the rules are the same. And I was able to just bring up the volume. So statewide, as of May 25th, roughly 49,000 loans have been made under this program. So 49,000 loans, and approximately $5 billion in loans have been supported through this program. And that was as of May 25th, and that's statewide for Kansas. I don't have a breakdown for the Wichita MSA, and I would anticipate being able to get those numbers in the next few weeks.
So on that, Wayne, so I, got a PPP, but my stylists are all self-employed individuals. Some of them applied for it and got it, and then I have a few that don't understand quite how to do it because they don't have like the business entity behind them, like I do. In fact, I have an 80-year-old stylist, and I actually gave her your email. She, I think, had tried to reach out to you. I don't know if she had connected with you yet, but that might be a webinar for a little different situation since they're all, self-employed, but work under the umbrella of like my business to help them out. Because, I'm sure we'll get to this, but, unemployment still hasn't come through for those self-employed people. So they still have gotten nothing. So that might be something you think about, is doing something for those type of individuals that are self-employed, but it's just them for their small business. So you might think about that.
Okay, I think that's a great point, Emily, because those independent contractors, those that get paid and their income is reflected maybe on a 1099 miscellaneous form, there is a calculation for them. And yeah, I agree with you. A number of people in that category haven't applied for one reason or another, and they very well could be eligible they are eligible for this loan. So yeah, I think that's a good point. We're going to be doing another webinar or two next week, and that was more around the forgiveness rules. But I think you're on to something, and maybe we could do something pretty quick for independent contractors and those who still are unsure.
They're not even independent contractors. I don't file a 1099 for them or anything. They're their own entity. They just pay me, rent every week. Mm-hmm. But they don't have the backing like I do of an accountant and the bank situation that I have. So it's I think they're a little lost on do I qualify, and it would help them immensely. So
I agree.
Can I say something about that?
Okay, we're going to go with Amber, then we'll go to Pam, because Pam rose her hand. Go ahead, Amber.
When are you doing that webinar that talks about the forgiveness?
I will forward that information to the group. It is the Kansas Small Business Development Center has coordinated that. I believe our workshop is Tuesday, June the 2nd.
Okay.
And I'll be sure to send that information very quickly after we're done this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pam.
What I was going to say about the PPP for sole proprietors that Emily was talking about, I don't use an accountant either, but I just talked to the people at my bank, and they were a huge help in how to apply for it and what all the rules were, and it was very helpful. So that's another resource they could use, is maybe talk to someone at their bank.
Absolutely.
So just a quick question about the webinars that you have coming up. Do people sign up for those? Are they open? If
they're free, people do have to RSVP for the webinars. Just from the security aspect, that I think we found that with those registrations and everything, you can really minimize, those folks who are getting into the meeting to, hack the meeting or that kind of thing. So from a security standpoint, they will have to RSVP, but it's absolutely free, very informative. And then the workshop is recorded so people can later see the replay, that sort of thing as well. So I will be sure to forward the information to this group immediately after our call.
And just it sounds like this won't be a problem. I just want to confirm you wouldn't mind us retweeting or promoting this on our social media to try to get that information out. I don't want you to be bombarded with RSVPs, but also
no, that would be wonderful. That would be wonderful. I think the capacity on these has been 200 or so.
Okay,
so yeah, there's been pretty good capacity, pretty excellent participation. And based on demand, we can quickly reschedule other sessions. So if there's widespread demand, we can repeat and do these pretty quickly. So no problem.
Awesome, excellent. Any more discussion on this particular item? See none. We're going to get into the. We touched on this a little bit about the PPE with the chamber being that one-stop shop on that website. Has anybody had problems or issues getting PPE by utilizing some of these local companies listed? Is anybody looking for PPE and had success stories or non-success stories about the companies listed on that website?
I mean, I have gone to one of the companies and gotten the washable, and reusable masks. Haven't had to acquire sanitizer yet. Although my brother-in-law that has Picasso's Pizza had a resource for some that was being made. I cannot remember where that was, but he brought me a gallon jug of that, so I'm good for a while. But and then I had Groover Labs make me some face shields. I happened to see that on their social media.
How'd that go? Was that pretty easy to do? Just reached out to them, or what was the?
Yeah, they had a post on their Facebook, and they're maybe $3 for the face shield, and so you just order them through email, the quantity that you want, and they come in a little kit that you assemble. So not sure if I will need to utilize them or not, but I wanted to have them in my arsenal of items to use. So
yeah,
because you just never know. So they made it really easy they notified me when they were ready, and I swung by and picked them up. So they have curbside.
Wow.
So I've been able to acquire some items for sure.
Okay, well, maybe we can reach out to them and see if they're on that website, if they want that type of traction. Like are they afraid they'll get too many requests or not? But I have had people ask about face shields.
Okay.
So that's good to know that Groover Labs, they're probably 3D printing them. I mean, they have an amazing facility over there. So,
and they were able to get them done pretty quickly. So, yeah, if you or somebody wants to reach out to them and see if they want to be added to that list. I just happened to stumble on it because I follow them on Facebook. So
I should probably do that too. Okay. Any other discussion about locally made PPEs and being able to, I think that this kind of dovetails into our previous discussion of trying to figure out a way. We have all these different, I think, online resources, but also how do we get that online resources in front of people, making sure that people know. And I was on the Call the Mayor show last night, Channel 8, where people call in and ask me questions. And some of those questions were, where do I buy a mask? Where people who don't want to sew a mask or create one by themselves, but they want to get one. Where do they get one? Because it's tougher to get them online. So that kind of shows that not everyone's plugged in, I think, to know where all the websites are and such. So I think
there's not one master link that could be made that could be put on like the city of Wichita or on local government pages, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, that kind of stuff, where you click on a master link and it just pops up the whole list of everything that's available?
That's actually not a bad idea. I'm not sure if we can get it on our, let me check, because we do wichita.gov/coronavirus, where we are updating, because our information on like the library services, on everything's changing fairly rapidly because the virus is in charge when it comes to what opens and what doesn't. So we might have a projected date, but then that changes, or the services change. So we might be able to put some of these third-party links on that page. Let me double check to see if that gets us into any unintended issues. I'll look into that. That's a really good idea.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I don't want to get in trouble, right? We're like, why are you promoting this organization but not that? But I think with some of these, if we link to really where resources, where there's lots of links and we're not biased with it, we could probably get away with it, right? Like someone else had a similar resource. So let me just check with communications about that. They're pretty much the gatekeepers to the internet outreach stuff we use. Okay, so there's no more discussion on this. We'll go to the next one, which is job vacancies announced. We needed to send that information to Ms. Kaufman to share with clients. Have you, Kara, have you been good with the information? Are you bombarded? Is there anything we can do to help?
I haven't been, I mean, I've been reaching out to our local community and just asking different people, different nonprofits, trying to partner up and different things like that. So I haven't heard anything specifically from this group. So I don't know if you guys have anything that you're preparing for, or if you know any friends or family who are getting ready to prepare for those things. Just any information that I can share with our ladies. I was able to get in touch with like Interest Bank and form a relationship with them so that if our, I mean, they get hundreds of applications even before the pandemic. So, you know, building that connection where if I called and said, hey, this client applied, then their application gets pulled a little further to the front.
Okay. Is there anything that we can do to help you out? Is there any organizations you're trying to reach out to that you have problems getting to, that maybe someone on this call might, you know, have a relationship with those people that could help out? Or, you know, because we want to make sure that we're getting people back to work, and, you know, those who feel comfortable getting out there, trying to get back to normalcy as much as possible. Is there any asks that you might have that you know, we could help you with?
I would just say if you guys have any connections, just let me know. You just send an email introducing us, or send me their contact information. I can really take it from there. But like any of the, you know, bigger corporations, like Cargill, I have relationships with Cargill, but, you know, some of the bigger places that do hire a lot of people, those would be some good spots. But I really want to help out the small businesses as well. So anybody who I can help, so we can help our ladies get jobs, that's the goal.
And this is probably a silly question because I'm sure Keith Lloyd's on top of it, but is Workforce Alliance been working with you guys? And, you know, because they're kind of in the business of collecting, you know, job openings and trying to promote those. Is that any problems there?
With them, but just due to the times, of course, they are extremely busy. So we're trying to take some of the weight off of them as well, because originally we were sending our clients over to them if they were job seeking. But now we know that it's going to be an extra long process. So we're trying to take some of that weight off of them.
Okay. Well, let me know if there's any, if you need any help with collaboration, particularly with groups like that. The city, we're members of that board. So, you know, they answer the phone when we call, pretty much. So that's by the way, like the superpower of being elected is people actually answer the phone when you call. So that's usually what I'm offering to people is like, well, I can give them a call for you if you want. All right, so moving on to the childcare supply/needs and finding options for parents to return to work. I've also been getting some feedback last couple of weeks about this item. Really at the city level, and just kind of reporting on my end, we're fairly conservative, right? Because everyone else is just kind of opening right up. We're still taking a conservative approach to reopening any of our day camps, reopening the type of programs that kids would go and utilize. and sadly, I mentioned this, yesterday on our show, where we might open up the library. We're probably not going to open up the kids section, because if your kids are anything like my kids, they're probably kind of gross, right? Like, they're not very good at social distancing. They got sticky hands, and there's a lot of common touch areas, and kids are passing along, what could be a bug without even knowing it. So, as a city, for the stuff that we normally open and have available for parents when kids are out of school, we are still working with keeping in mind what is going to be the safest thing to open first. How do we keep this safe? And a lot of that comes down to touch areas, and of course social distancing. Since we spoke last time, I also had some conversations with an organization, or a representative of an organization who does like kid sports leagues, and they seem very focused on reopening just to kind of get back to business, which to me kind of worries me a little bit. Like, my policy, like, spider senses go off a little bit, where it's like, it shouldn't just be getting back to business. It should be creating a plan to get back to business safe, right? Where it is an economic incentive to that, where if my kids play soccer, if a kid's playing soccer and gets people sick, and that we'll definitely figure out the cluster, right? That's one thing we're good, is tracking back, hey, where did this start? And if it's tracked back to, I think, one of these programs that are provide care for children or activities for children, then me being completely from the other side of town, let's say, I'm going to pull my kids out of soccer. Like, it's just not worth it if I feel that that's not going to be a safe activity. So opening up at the city level, and I think even in the private sector, some of these activities, we want to do so in a way where we're cautious and focus on safety. So that's my update as far as looking at like the some of the stuff at the city level. So let's go with Janelle, and then we'll go to Amber. Go ahead.
So I'm fortunate my kids are older, but a lot of my friends that have younger kids, I think the pressure there is, it's hard enough staying home and having to office from home and have your kids do at-home school. Now that school is out, I think, frankly, they're freaking out about, how am I going to occupy these small little people for 8 or more hours a day when there's no summer camps, youth sports, youth activities. They can't go to a library. They can't go to a playground. What in the heck am I going to be doing with these people all day when I'm trying to work, and now they're just running amok all over the house? So I think there's they're on high alert, right? Because they don't know, they're used to sending them away to, camps and having structured activities for them. And those are just gone with no sense of when or how they will return. So that's the feedback I've gotten from some of my friends is, if you can go into a casino and gamble, which is a filthy place with, then why can't my kid go to Girl Scout camp or whatever? So it seems to be a real contradiction. And so I get where their frustration comes from.
No, and it's super frustrating, particularly with this logic, because in our culture, we have this, we strive for fairness, right? So we have this idea of like, why can, and I got this throughout the entire pandemic, where why can this business open but my business can't? And it really gets down, I think, to safety. Is a lot of times if you have these conversations, and I think all of us should be having these conversations, where you can't do jujitsu without spreading droplets, back when we were trying to flatten a curve, because you're in close to people, you're rolling around, like, it's sweat, like, it's gross. I do jujitsu, by the way, and I'm terrible at it. But so like it's very tough to, like, there's a reason why the jujitsu gym is closed when we're flattening the curve, but you could go jogging in the park. Like, they both fall under the umbrella of exercise, but one doesn't put you at risk of getting droplets, the other one does. So,
Maybe we
but-
have to go back to the education point.
right. And, but to your point too, some of it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like some of it, and some of it, still is, because you'll have, for example, and this is where I think it's going to get us in trouble at the local government level when it comes to explaining. I'll use golf, for example, where we close down on golf courses during, the flatten the curve time frame, but other big cities didn't. So, we got, why are you doing it, but other cities aren't? And it's inconsistent. And I think that when we start looking at what's going to be reopened, what are these services, particularly for young people, we run into, I think, some of that inconsistency. Where a private organization might open and figure out how to keep things safe, I think a little easier than, the risk that one of our department heads might be feeling. So, I don't think there's an easy answer at this point, but it's going to be one of those where I think we're gonna have to get out there and talk about it. But definitely feel your pain, not just because I hear about it, but also like my wife said to me last week, like, I can't get work done here. Like, we're fortunate we can work from home, right? Even though I come to the office, but we got 3 little kids and they're absolutely terrible. Like, great kids, right? Like, but they're normal kids, which means like they are awful to deal with at home for my poor wife when she's trying to do work. Like, she's sitting there on a laptop, trying to type stuff up or go sneak off and do a YouTube video to kind of deliver her content virtually. And then she has like a kid crawling all over her thinking that she's playing a game on a laptop, trying to hit the button so he can play the game. Or worse, the 2-year-old is running around no pants on because he's potty training, is, getting all in Chelsea's church videos, and no one needs to see that. And, which is literally what's happening because my wife works for a church. So, but yeah, I think parents feel it, and it's not getting easier. It's not like we kind of like learn to tame these wild children. Like, I think that people are ready to figure out what those options are to separate their work life from, being a parent. So, we got to figure out the safest way to open those, and that the city has a role to play in that. So that's something that we're still working on. Maybe that'll be an action item for next time. We could talk more about that, because the world might change by then. I mean, but we also, just to point this out, and we got a couple items left, so I don't feel like I'm completely sucking up all the time. Even though I got Amber, I still see you. I'm pointing at you, Amber.
I know how to help.
But we have we do know that this virus is a threat to kids. When it first started, we remember the governor stopped school, and how much like criticism she got from that, because people said it doesn't affect children. And then we actually figured out that the virus that does have a particular effect on children, and it was being misdiagnosed. It's similar to a different disease, I guess, and it was being misdiagnosed. So as we, I think, progress forward and we learn more about this thing, we're going to take appropriate actions as well. So, Amber, it's all yours.
So I'm a mom of 3 boys who are extremely bored, and I can no longer work from home. But I do know that USD 259, all of their latchkey programs are full already, and it was full within like the same day it opened, it went full. I know Evergreen is getting ready to open up on Monday to take applications for that one, but they are only taking 60 kids this year for the summer versus 200 of what they would have taken in the years previous. I do know that the day programs that are opening up for kids are like really short, 45 minutes with an hour, 2 hours in between to sanitize the programs that are open. So there is stuff out there. There just have been extremely shortened for families. That's the challenge that we have as an employer, trying to get, women back to work and, stay home with my kids, and how am I going to get them in these programs? And there's only so many scholarships available as well. And when you're taking a quarter of what you would have taken the year previous. So there is programs out there that are opening up. They're just not to the full extent of, okay, we're they're no longer doing the day-long programs. They're shortening the times so that way they can maybe get more kids in, but they're going to be shorter times.
And it sounds like they're taking less people, so you're going to
Yeah.
have that bottleneck. And sadly, in a lot of those cases, and I don't really have data to back this up, but it seems like in a lot of those cases, the people who are really well connected, who know that, oh, it's going to open up this time, and might have the privilege of actually, not having to work that day, so they can sign their kid up right away. A lot of slots will probably be taken up by the people who might really need some of this services are probably not the ones that are getting it.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
that would be, I think, my
and or the scholarships for low income families. There's less of them because these programs now have to accept and have less opportunities for them. And so working with low income families, it's really challenging to try to get them those kind of services because there's just a whole lot less.
Right. And there's a certain privilege too. I think that,
Sure.
Like my mother, I've talked about this, as a waitress growing up and they're a bartender at night. She doesn't go to work, she doesn't get paid. She can't work from home.
Yep.
So there's, I think that a certain jobs is probably easier to stay with your kids than other jobs. People, I think, are really depending on some of these programs. So that's definitely something we got to look into. I will check into the city side. What else we have? Like I said, we have this perfect storm right now until the feds hopefully do something to help us, because we can't print money. Where we're trying to keep people safe, so we're slowly reopening, but also we're closing some facilities. Like our pools, for example, we're not opening them like we normally would, because it's a cost savings as well. Like we have to cut $11 million out of our budget this year. And so some of these programs, I think, wind up on a chopping block, and it's a time where we need a lot of these type of programs. So it's just a disaster, but we'll get through it. So, okay, I made a note of that. We'll report next time on some of these programs for kids and some of the stuff we can do to try to ease up, I think, on what parents are dealing with, so people can start slowly getting back to work. All right, so the next one was ask a representative from the Board of Cosmetology and or Board of Barbers to speak up about regulations and safety, emphasize that they are ready, qualified, and competent to see the public. So, by the way, I got a haircut since then, so it's really so firsthand experience, right? Because my experience is global, right? So let me tell you how my experience was. It seems like they really, cosmetology board came out with some really good recommendations with, wearing masks, making sure that people are far apart. And to be honest, I think that we need to check into all of the regulatory stuff that came from the governor is now gone. So we should probably see if, that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, right? Like, and the county's not going to vote to actually implement these with any type of teeth. So they voted to recommend the recommendations. So moving forward, I'm wondering if we should have someone reach out to the cosmetology board and get what because I'm sure they were at the table when the governor was making these restrictions, to see what they recommend the practices are moving forward. But it seems like this issue, as far as being regulated, is really not regulated at this time. Like, it seems, unless the board is doing something above and beyond that has to do with, I think, your licensing, like where you have to do this or that. Like, I don't think these regulations are sticking. Maybe Pam knows more. Pam, go ahead.
Well, the board did give us recommendations or suggestions, or I forget what their exact language was. It wasn't really a law or a rule. It was more of a suggestion, which I think most of us are following the suggestions, but I think the general public maybe doesn't know what the board suggested to us.
And that's gonna be, I think, one of the problems too is probably consistency, right? Like, if everyone's doing it, and Janelle, I'll get to you. If everyone's doing it, you kind of have that prisoner's dilemma, right? Like that kind of Nash equilibrium, not to dig back to grad school, but if everyone's doing it, then everyone kind of gets it. But if one person or one shop starts deviating from that, then does that have a trigger effect where everyone else starts deviating from these safety standards, and what's the risk?
I think if there were more publicity of what the board recommended and the general public knew more about it, then there probably would be more consistency with practitioners following that if the public, was more informed. And I don't think the Board of Cosmetology, I don't know that they have any spokesperson, or we hear from them usually by email. So we've just been telling our clients, like, this is what the board suggests, and so this is what we're going to do for now.
And I'm going to get to Janelle, but maybe if we make that expectation, like, that's one of the things I think with social pressure, where why aren't you wearing gloves type thing, like that expectation, might help people follow these guidelines if by educating, I think, customers that this is what the guidelines are. Then they notice when someone's not following those guidelines, that might actually encourage people to utilize those guidelines. We've seen a little bit of that with face masks, where I'm not going back to this place because people aren't wearing face masks. And, because everyone knows that you should be, CDC guidelines are wearing face masks now. So maybe a similar approach by educating people on what those guidelines are would be both beneficial for the customer and the provider. Janelle, I've filibustered your time. Go for it. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that the struggle I had, especially, yesterday is, we have our protocols posted, and, I have it on my website, my social media, and I had several clients that came in yesterday. I've got my mask on, and they come, I'm asking them to text me when they arrive, and that to stay in their car. And I had several clients yesterday that just completely disregarded the protocols that I've put into place for safety. And their response to that was, well, all the rules are gone now. So why do I have to? I mean, there was just a little bit of dismissiveness of, the governor's lifted all that. So why do I have to follow these rules now? And I said, well, because I've chosen as a business to still keep these in place. So I'm not sure where that line needs to be, because you don't want to alienate your client base, but I'm still choosing to use those protocols, because that's going to come back on me for sure. If people start getting sick, they're gonna blame somebody like me.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So I don't know where that line is, I guess, and how to educate my clients.
Kara.
I'd like to just back off of that as well. I mean, I know we're not in the same industry, but we're doing the same things. We have a sign up, right? Literally, we ended up moving the sign before you even got to our step. Like, it says, stop. If you have any of these symptoms, you will be required to wear a mask. You'll have to wash your hands. This is for the safety of not only you, but the staff and the volunteers who are here trying to help you. And it's like, they just whoop right past the sign. They try to walk in the front door, and we're like, hold on, social distancing. Let's get your face mask, because we provide face masks for the clients. Let's provide this for you, those types of things. But I really think this all comes around to just raising awareness. And I really think that comes back to what we were talking about earlier with, is there a website that has all these links? Where do we go? I feel like year round, even outside of this pandemic, that's how we're all feeling. Where do I go to figure out how what I need to do, who I need to contact? What do I do? So I think that's really going to come around to all of us. Well, first of all, we need to set an example. But second of all, we got to take it upon ourselves to let our community know what they need to be doing.
And just on that point, and to both your points, actually, I think that we're seeing this a lot with teenagers, right? And I don't have teenagers, but I hear about this, where they think because a band's lift or everything goes back to normal, right? Where we're safe now. And I think that we're starting to see that from Janelle's experience where, if it's not an order, then it means that, we don't have to do it anymore. But it's really, this is about safety. It's not about law. It's not about, I'm going to get a ticket if I don't do this, or I'm going to get in trouble. It's about, no, you could get sick and pass this on. But I do think we're in an interesting situation where it's seeing people doing the behavior is going to make people do the behavior. At City Hall, we are not letting up on our planned approach to reopen. If you come into City Hall, and you will see the pictures on the floor that says you're 6 feet away from the picture in front of you. You know, like I wear a mask coming in. I think that, and everyone does, all the employees do. I think it's very important to kind of model the way, you know, to take a kind of a terminology from leadership books, right? Model the way, and just educating our clientele, I think, is going to be important. I do know that, you know, I got my car worked on at Jiffy Lube a couple of weeks ago, and the guy was just like this the whole time, right? And I kept moving back, and I eventually had to like do one of these and say like, hey, I'm social distancing. I work in a field where I'm around a lot of people. I don't want to get you sick. And then, you know, I'm out there watching watching, you know, my car get worked on, and they're like super close to each other. And so that sticks out to someone like me because I know what I'm looking for. I think that kind of spreading that information out and doing ourselves is going to be super important. I feel really terrible because I work in politics, right? Like I'm not gonna lie to people and say like I'm nonpartisan. Like we're all kind of partisan. Like I work in politics, I'm elected even though it's a nonpartisan office. I kind of hate how political mass have gotten, right? Where they're almost symbolic of a political ideology. And that's, and I feel, because I'm part of that system, I feel like partly responsible. Like I try to work really hard to make, in the beginning, to make this non-political, like the stay-in orders and so on, in my role. And I think that we kind of lost the handle on it. But have an explanation to people that it's about safety. It's not about your safety. It's about your grandma's safety. It's like driving drunk, right? Like it's not about you driving drunk, making a bad choice. It's that you could kill an entire family if you're on a road like that. Like it's not about you, it's about everyone. And first responders have to come clean that up. So, you know, I think that's the message I've been getting out is normally if you take it away from that individualism message into a community message, you get further, at least I have. All right, so the next one's to create the Facebook group. Do we have any more discussion on this one? I'm 3 minutes over. I'm trying to stay on time.
Nope.
All right, cool.
I'm gonna have to log off. I've got to go.
All right, thanks, Emily. You're not missing much. We only got one more thing, and it's good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Have you created the Facebook page?
Yeah, is what? So, so I wasn't successful getting all you guys tagged in. I only tried it once, by the way. Now I got to spend a lot of time on it. So in full disclosure, I went on, tried to create the page. Realized I'm not friends with happy, cool people, so I couldn't invite you. Got frustrated and was going to get back to it. I never did. And the email chain, you know, wasn't working. So I might just try it one more time, and you guys might get a friend request from me. I'm in a weird spot where I don't know how to do a Facebook group off my page, right? Like my actual page. I just know how to do and I'm the worst millennial ever apparently because I don't fully get like Facebook or social media. But if I do it off my personal page, I'm at the max for like friends. So I got to go like unfriend people I knew from high school and then come back and like refriend, you know, people I know now. And because there was a time in Facebook world, I think, where you just like friended everyone. So anyway, so I got to go do that. And then, you know, the group, that's how we can move forward with the group unless someone has a better idea. So I'll try that again, but I do want everyone to know, like, you didn't get an invite, not because like we're excluding you. It's because like I only kind of know what I'm doing.
Can you just tell us the name of the group and we can go find it and then ask to join?
Can you do that? Okay, like so when I couldn't, I tried like 3 people to invite like 3 people. I think I got like Ann and like, you know, a few others who like I'm friends with, and then I actually just exited out and deleted it, like just, you know, because it was just like, oh, I'll do this later, like this looks tough, like cause now I gotta go look you guys up and then friend you all and then do the group. I'll take another stab at it, definitely, but and I was supposed to get back to it and then everything kind of got crazy, so let me try to do that today. I have some time, and then again, go ahead.
Send us the email. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think you can email an invite when you form a group. I
Yeah.
think that's
Really?
I think so. I could be wrong.
I'm literally the worst one ever. By the way, like everyone in this building thinks I'm like really good on social media. Like they think that's like my world. And I'm only like, and it's just, and I let them think that too. I'm all like, like yeah.
Or
So
you just tell us the name of the group, we'll go find it, and then you just let us in.
okay, cool. Yeah, we'll let me form it, and then I'll try to I'll send a link to Dee, and she can kind of shoot the link out to all you guys. That would be like 1,000% easier, I guess. So they're trying to figure out like how many like Kara Kaufmans there are or Pams there are. So and inviting people from other cities in without knowing it. So yeah, I will definitely do that. So
If you need help, just let me know.
yeah, Amber, I got you. Are we friends on Facebook, Amber?
No.
See,
Can
okay.
be.
Yeah, I'll definitely add you, and then like,
Absolutely,
okay.
but
Well, I'm definitely gonna have to kick off, my third grade best friend from Facebook to go.
well, don't do that. Just email me and I can help you.
Okay, we'll go that route then.
I can help you with that as well. So just let me know.
Okay, cool. All right, so really at this point it's open discussion. We've pretty much weaved in, I think, open discussion throughout. But is there any particular items that people, wanted to talk about, haven't had a chance to talk about yet?
Yeah, now that I got one.
Okay.
So now that they have kind of opened everything, can we figure out maybe some strategies so that we can avoid these cycles of open and close and open and close? Is that something that maybe we can address with the county commission? Because you've got these businesses that are already skating on the edge, and I think that's a huge concern for them. Is what is that going to do to me if in 3 weeks, a month, 3 months, I get shut down again for 2 months, and is that avoidable in any way?
Yeah. So the county commission is going to be the ones I think to talk to about this, but there might be a approach that we could take that we're all kind of in agreement for this or that. So we should put that as an item of discussion next time for sure. Okay. And in the meantime, be thinking about that strategy. Yeah, one of the problems, there's a few problems with this virus that I know of. And my doctorate is not in medicine. Like, I'm absolutely useless. But I will say, from my understanding, this virus falls into that same category of viruses as the cold virus, not the flu. We talk about it as a flu because that's the last pandemic we had, was a flu pandemic. If this thing was a flu virus, we actually probably would have a vaccine by now. Like, we're good at vaccines for flus, really bad for common colds, right? Like, so people think it's going to be a cycle or that could be, like, if we're lucky, it will likely be a cycle, right? Where there's actually, it will correlate with the cold season, So, and that's if we're lucky. Like, it's also kind of a super bug you can jump different species. I mean, it's also just this nasty kind of creature in its own right. So it's really somewhat comparable to a cold, but not really comparable. But to get back to your point, we might have a summer where we're not in a cold season, where we get this kind of false confidence that we're over this and things are good, and then we see a bump up during cold season, right? We see a bump up in the fall. So a strategy like that, having that conversation now would be really proactive, I think, and having, I think, kind of the business community have this input, you guys have this input, and then communicating that with our Board of Health, which is the county commission, who serve as the Board of Health for some reason, then might be productive moving forward, so that people aren't reactionary, they're actually planning. But yeah, really good thought on that. Like, even if people feel confident, like, we still got to be thinking about the fall as well. Amber, you had something you were jumping in on? So like someone moved, so all the things moved? No, it was Fee. Okay. Sorry. Because like all the boxes moved on me, so you guys moved spots, and sorry. Go ahead.
I was just wondering if maybe during our next call we could add to the agenda what everybody's kind of thinking of large gatherings. I just know for our association, we had to postpone our memory gala, which is like our largest fundraiser, has about 360 people. And now, when do we bring it back? What's comfortable? It's kind of hard to figure out. We set a date for the fall, but now we're thinking maybe that's not appropriate. And so just kind of wondering everybody else's thoughts on just large gatherings and such like that, and what they may think with that. But it changed, like you said, everything changes daily. So what we think now could be totally different than when we meet again.
Well, Kara had her hand up. She's gonna jump in on this.
Yeah, so we're in the same situation. We've actually missed out on 2 funding opportunities for us throughout this year. And we have our big gala at the end of the year that we are still planning on doing. But I mean, like you said, it's just, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen at the end of the year. So is this really a wise decision? You know, different opportunities. There's just a lot to think about. I do want to just ask you, have you thought about switching to a virtual gala yet?
So we've thought about switching to a virtual gala. We've thought about, I mean, in all honesty, you have probably 20% of your attendees provide 80% of your income. So moving more to a smaller event. There's all kinds of different options on the table. And so just kind of wondering, they are fundraiser events, but they also are awareness events. So you try to balance those out. But I feel for you, Kara, when we had to cancel or postpone, we don't use the word cancel, our gala, that was about 35 to 40% of our revenue income. And so trying to figure out how to recover from that as well when we aren't one of the nonprofits that can benefit from the loans is, you know, we've got some opportunity for different things, I think.
Definitely.
Well, something that goes along with the live streaming galas, I actually participated in one with the National Kidney Foundation, and it was supposed to be the Great Chefs of the Midwest gala that was supposed to be down at Kansas Star Casino, but we weren't able to do that. So I actually worked kind of the behind the scene role as the producer, making sure that audio settings and everything were right. And while JJ Hayes from KFDI was our MC, and we actually raised a good amount of money doing that strictly on Facebook. People were able to send in donations. We had videos to show exactly what we were trying to do and we're raising money for. And we had a person come in and sharing his story and why the Kidney Foundation helped him and how it helped him and how it helps others. So doing the virtual thing can actually work very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
Ian, I'd love to connect with you maybe sometime in the next 2 weeks and kind of ask you how that all went and just pick your brain on that.
Absolutely. And I can also put you in touch with the people with the National Kidney Foundation and how we set all that up, because it's something we're looking at possibly doing moving forward if things keep going the way they are, because it's good for people to be able to see exactly everything. It's good for them to be able to interact, because they can just do like live chat with that as well. But one thing that was definitely missing was that community feel, you know. So
yeah.
Do you know what platform they used?
We actually did that through Facebook Live.
You did through Facebook
when we did
Live.
that one, yeah.
If you haven't found one, Faye, Octria is a really great auction website. That's what we've been using. That's what we were planning on using. We're going to end up doing a virtual clothing sale this fall. We were hoping to have it in person, but we're going to have a virtual one. But yeah, you miss out on the community feel, but the ROI on virtual events is, I mean, it's a lot better because you don't have all the expenses of the food.
Right.
All of that. So.
Well, I'll reach out to the two of you maybe
okay.
In the next 2 weeks and we can discuss. I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, and if we could get moving forward, I think the nonprofit sector is going to, I mean, all sectors are really down, right? Like nonprofit sector, except for Zoom, except the one sector is probably doing really well right now is like streaming movies and Zoom. But if we could share kind of best practices of what's working and what's not, I think it's going to be beneficial and I'll tell you, I serve on the vestry for my church. We're like the governing body, and our finances are shot there too. Where normally people show up for and they have this experience and they give their contributions and so on. And although we're offering, and this kind of gets me into my wife's lane where she works, although we're offering the equivalency of services online, there are some people who just aren't biting, right? They're just not interested in online services. They're just waiting for things to get back to normal. So, I think that in a nonprofit world, you guys probably feel that too, where what's working, what's not. This group of people who aren't interested in getting online and doing this. Did one organization, let's say, Faye have more success kind of reaching that group after identifying them than Kara by doing this one particular thing? And then, with that, can we share so that we can all be better at it? Let's moving forward, let's see if we can take some notes on just what has been really working out. I think the idea of utilizing that website, for auctions is probably a really good one. I would have thought of that. I would have tried to, use like PayPal or something. So
I'm not exactly sure what we used as far as taking in the donations. I can find that information out though.
Excellent. Let's keep that going. That networking or that sharing info and spreading that info out to our own networks. Anything else for open discussion? Nathan, you got anything? You haven't said much.
Yeah, I haven't had much to contribute today, but yeah, maybe next time.
Yeah, just making sure.
Yeah, first of all, by the way, Nathan, you guys' beer is amazing. Just want to let you know that. But my big thing is that a lot of people know that I'm also in the entertainment industry, and that was one of the things I'm really trying to push and trying to help out with, because I've talked with friends and coworkers and colleagues who are like your venue owners, and right now they, as well as us who are the performers, are really struggling because we've lost our biggest outlet. And for some of these places, we've actually had some venues who have ended up closing because of expenses. They haven't been able to stay open. So I'm actually reaching out to others and trying to find out what exactly they're looking for, what they're hoping that the city can do or the community can do. And the more information I can get there, the more I can just pass that along, and hopefully we can see how to kind of help bring things back. Because one thing that a lot of people, especially for in dire times, I always tell my students, in dire times, what's the one thing we all always look for? We look for something to bring our spirits up. And being a musician, that's music, or that's the art. So that's something that just helps us feel like humans again. So I want to see if there's any way that we can find a way to help that,
And I think you're right. I think one of the, sociological and psychological things of this entire tragedy is, unlike other tragedies we face, is normally we have a healing process. We have closure, right?
Yeah.
We get together. We go to church services. We have some type of almost like celebration of ourselves, of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
We hold hands. We sing songs. We haven't been able to do that. Like, we're still going through it. Like, don't get me wrong, it's probably not appropriate for, but we haven't had really a chance to kind of mourn. We haven't had a chance to really have some of these transitional experiences that we have as a culture, and because we're so distant. And I think music adds to that. I think that entertainment brings us together.
Mm-hmm.
We might not know each other, but we come together to watch and play, and then now we're all together, right? So I think that there's a lot of validity in that, and it's just moving forward. How do we do it safely, and what's the best way to facilitate? So that's a good point. That's something I think we should be thinking about as well. And 2 weeks from now, things might change, and I think a lot of this is going to change once we figure out like the cocktail of antiviral medicines that is going to knock this thing out. And there are some people who are working on that. So once we get better treatment too, I think that we're going to be in a more comfortable spot to start letting our foot off the brake a little bit. So,
Right.
something that but really good point. I think that it's not just the entertainers, although I'm sure teachers too who like to be in a classroom or now teaching online, and that's just not.
Yeah, because we miss our kids, we really do.
Right.
And at the end of the year, it was doing the parade route for kids. That was one of the best things that we did down at 261, because those are kids that we haven't seen in a long time, and being able to see that again, seeing that and have that connection, especially for our seniors, that was one of the biggest things. So
I can only imagine. Yeah, I mean, I'm teaching a class this fall at Wichita State. I teach in the political science department over there, and now we're doing like this online class instead. And I know, like, I should admit this, but it's like, now it feels like work. Being in a classroom, having great conversations with young people about about what I do for a living, and trying to inspire that next generation of people to do public service. That's why I'm in there. That's an incredible time. You just don't have, I think, that same experience when you do it online. Anyways, I don't teach at the high school level, but I kind of get roughly a sense of what you're talking about. I couldn't imagine. All right, well, we're 22 minutes over. Not as over as we were last time, though. So good job, guys.
That's good.
And, if there's nothing else, I'm going to try that Facebook group again. We're going to have Dee, who will send out the minutes to make sure that, we kind of have that starting point for our next meeting. We'll get the agenda together. If there's anything in the meantime that we need to work on, we'll do it either through the email or through the Facebook group, once we get that thing going. So are there any questions at this point? If not, I make a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Like, I need a second, but I don't think there's a parliamentarian. Unless Dee chimes in, we'll probably.
I'll second that we end the meeting. How's that?
Excellent. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for being on it and donating your time, and I really appreciate it. We'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.